They left for the all-inclusive resort without me, 6 rooms, 21 family members, and my card on file. I found out from a group photo captioned, "Sun, sand, and zero drama." When I called, my mom said, "Don't disturb." 15 minutes later, my sister sent a text meant for my aunt. "She'll never cancel. She needs us." I just replied, "Enjoy day 1. Then I reported fraud, froze the booking, and flagged the resort charge. At 10:32 a.m., my phone lit up 46 missed calls. One said, "They locked us out." I wasn't supposed to be home that week. None of us were. We've been planning the family trip since February. 6 rooms at a beachfront, all-inclusive in the Dominican Republic. My mom made a Google Doc for packing tips and swimsuit color themes. My sister Katie had spreadsheets for airport carpools. Everyone was in on it. Everyone except me, apparently. I found out I'd been cut out the day after they landed. Backing up a little, 3 weeks earlier, we threw a party for my son's 10th birthday. Nothing extravagant, just pizza, water balloons, and backyard games with some of his school friends. We even set up a little projector for a movie night. I invited the whole family, told them the date 3 times in the family group chat, reminded them again the week before. The only ones who showed were my wife's parents. Katie said they had too much to do before the trip. Aaron never responded at all. My parents told me they were running errands and my poppin'. They didn't. Not even a phone call. That night when I was cleaning up juice boxes and wet towels, my son asked me, "Did they forget?" I didn't know what to tell him. I went into my office, opened up the joint family trust account, the one we all have access to technically, but I'm the one who manages it. It was originally set up after my grandmother passed, meant for big family expenses, emergencies, or group travel where I would book things and everyone would reimburse. The balance was off, way off. Over $11,000 had been withdrawn in 2 separate transactions. One was a wire to something called Verona Travel Company. The other was directly to the resort, the one we were all supposed to be going to. I called my mom straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. Sent a message to Katie asking if she knew what Verona Travel was. No response. I texted Aaron, left on read. Then the next morning I opened Instagram. Katie had posted a group photo. Everyone was there. My parents, Aaron and his girlfriend, our cousins from Ohio, even my aunt, who supposedly hated flying, all 21 of them, in matching beige outfits with floppy hats, posing by the resort pool under a banner that said, "Summer Reset." The caption, "Sun, sand, and zero drama." It hit me like a punch to the chest. Not just that they went without me, but that they planned to. They decided, probably weeks ago, to cut me and my son out and use the family trust to do it. I stared at the photo for a long time. My mom was holding a mimosa. Katie was tagging the resort's Instagram account. One of the little kids was wearing a flow tie we bought last year on our last family trip, the one I booked and paid for. I called my mom one more time. This time she picked up. All she said was, "Don't disturb," then hung up. 15 minutes later, a message popped up. It was from Katie, but clearly meant for someone else. My aunt, maybe, said she'll never cancel. She needs us. I stared at the message for a second. Then I replied, "Enjoy day 1, and then I got to work. First, I froze the trust account. Then I called the bank and reported the charge to the resort as unauthorized. I flagged the booking, explained the situation, and emailed my documentation, the trust paperwork, my role as manager, everything. Verona Travel's customer service was surprisingly helpful. Apparently, there was a pending authorization still processing with the resort, which they said they could hold. At exactly 10:32 a.m. the next day, my phone blew up. 46 missed calls, mostly my mom, a bunch from Katie, even Aaron tried a few times. One voicemail actually made me pause. They locked us out. Apparently, when the resort ran the pending charge and it got flagged, they immediately froze the reservation, which meant the wristbands got deactivated, which meant no access to rooms, food, or drinks. And since my card was the one on file, they couldn't authorize anything. I didn't reply, not yet, because ruining their little vacation, that was just phase 1. And they had no idea what else I had planned. I didn't answer a single call that morning. Just sat on the porch with a cup of coffee watching the missed call counter rise. By noon, they'd stopped trying. I figured they were huddled in the lobby, sweating in their matching linen outfits, trying to explain to a resort manager why their entire booking was now marked as a potential fraud case. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. They used my son's disappointment as a springboard into paradise and left us behind without a word. Around 1:15 p.m., I got my first actual message that wasn't a mistake. "Aaron, you could have just said something. We didn't think you'd want to come after everything." After everything? I laughed like I was the problem for being angry. They all ghosted my son's birthday and drained our trust fund behind my back. Then Katie followed up with a longer one. "Mom thought it would be best to not stress you out with the planning. She said you'd get in the way. We were going to reimburse the account after the trip. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She wasn't wrong. It was supposed to be worse." 3 p.m. I finally texted back. "There's a Chase branch 2.4 miles from your resort. If you can get there before 4:30 and deposit $11,367.90 into the trust, maybe they'll let you back in." No response, but I knew they saw it. 10 minutes later, my cousin Jen texted me. She's one of the few I don't actively dislike, and she has 2 kids. Her message was more direct. "Ethan, the kids are hungry. We don't have our stuff. This is serious." I considered calling her, then decided not to. Instead, I called the resort, got connected to someone in management. I asked if they had locked the rooms and blocked access to facilities under booking ID 47428. They confirmed. I asked if any of the guests had behaved aggressively towards staff. There was a pause, then a yes. I asked them to note that I had submitted a formal fraud report and that as the account holder, I did not authorize further charges or reinstatement until the funds were returned. They understood. By 6 p.m., someone must have cracked because the family group chat, which had been silent for days, lit up. "Mom, Ethan, we didn't raise you to be vindictive. Katie, this is hurting the whole family. Stop making a scene. Aaron, you're being insane. Just cancel the fraud claim." I replied once, just one message. "I'm being the person you taught me to be responsible." Then I went quiet again. The next morning, the call came in at 8:06 a.m. My mom. This time she didn't sound smug. She sounded tired. "We're flying back tomorrow. We'll figure it out here." "Sure," I said. "See you then." But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. They thought losing 2 days of vacation was the punishment, but I had 3 more moves, and each one would land a little harder than the last. They came back 2 days later, exactly like my mom said. I got the first heads up from a cousin who still sort of talks to me. "Just landed. Everyone's pissed. We didn't even get to do the excursion." I didn't reply. Instead, I drove by the house I grew up in. I parked across the street and watched them arrive from a distance. A massive rental van pulled up just past noon. The whole group looked beat. My dad was red-faced and sweating, trying to muscle a suitcase up the driveway. My mom kept waving her phone around like she was in a meeting. Katie was arguing with someone on speaker, and Aaron stood off to the side smoking a cigarette even though he quit last year. No one looked relaxed. No one smiled. I didn't get out of the car, just watched them file back into the house like inmates returning from a failed escape attempt. They thought this was the punishment, the flight home, the embarrassment at the resort, the inconvenience of having to figure out new rooms, food, and travel with 21 people and no access to funds. But that was just the introduction, because while they were sipping watered-down cocktails, I'd been very productive. First, I froze the trust account, which stopped them from accessing the remaining funds. Then, I went through every single transaction in the past 18 months. There were a lot of them. Katie had been using it to cover school supplies for her kids, never reimbursed. Aaron had booked a rental car to visit friends in Colorado. My parents had taken out a chunk for some house repairs, which turned out to be a patio extension and a hot tub. All of it came from the same pot of money that was supposed to be for everyone. They must have assumed I'd never check. Or if I did, I'd just quietly fix it like usual. But this time, I wasn't fixing anything. I hired an attorney, same guy who helped us draft the trust when Grandma died. I asked him what my options were, and he laid it out very clearly. Since I was the appointed manager, I had full discretion to dissolve the trust, especially in light of unauthorized withdrawals. So that's exactly what I did. The paperwork went out 2 days before they landed. By the time they got back, it was already in motion. I waited until 11 o'clock the next day. Then I got the first message from Katie. Why is there a lawyer email in my inbox? 5 minutes later, Aaron sent, Dude, are you seriously doing this? Then a group text from my mom. Ethan, call us now. This is serious. I didn't respond. At 2:43 p.m., my phone rang. It was a local number, the bank. I picked up. The woman on the other end said my parents had come in to access the trust. She was calling because it was frozen and under review. I thanked her for the update. That night, my dad showed up at my house. He didn't knock right away, just stood on the porch for a while. When I finally opened the door, he looked like he hadn't slept. He asked if we could talk. Just the two of us. I let him in, sat across the room, and didn't offer him anything to drink. He went into this long, rambling explanation about how the trust was just a tool, how families share things, and how it wasn't about money, but cooperation. I let him talk. He was halfway through some nonsense analogy about oars and rowing in the same direction when I cut him off. You used the trust to exclude me and my kid. You used my son's money to drink rum out of coconuts. He didn't have an answer for that. Just stared at the floor and asked what I wanted. I want it all done, I said. The trust is finished. Everyone gets their share. We go back to living our own lives. No shared expenses. No family accounts. No more pretending. He asked if that was really necessary. I didn't reply. He left without saying goodbye. The next morning, I transferred my son's portion of the trust into a private custodial account just for him. Then I made one more move. I emailed the HOE board. Turns out my parents used trust money to build that patio. The same patio that extended beyond the approved dimensions on the property map. I attached a photo from Google Maps and the highlighted portion of the trust report showing it was paid for with communal funds. And I CC'd the city zoning department. That was move 4. The 5th would come a little later, but by then they'd be begging for it to stop. It only took 3 days for the HOE to respond. An official letter was delivered to my parents' mailbox. Certified, of course, informing them that a formal investigation had been opened regarding an unapproved construction project that extended beyond the zoning line. They were instructed to provide building permits, receipts, and architectural drawings by the following Friday or face escalating fines and mandatory removal. The best part, the letter noted that since the structure was partially funded using a family trust, not a personal account, there could be grounds for civil dispute if any of the beneficiaries filed complaints, which I had in writing with documentation. I didn't expect my mom to call, but she did. She asked if I was really doing this over a vacation. Over a vacation. I told her it wasn't about the vacation. It was about how they turned something that was supposed to belong to all of us, especially my kid, into a luxury escape for themselves. That they didn't even bother to make up a good excuse. That they didn't show up for a 10-year-old's birthday party because they didn't want to. She told me I was acting like a stranger. I told her, strangers don't steal from you. After that, things got quieter. The family group chat stopped. No more passive-aggressive updates about casseroles or Katie's kids' swim meets. No more photos from Aaron's hiking trips. It was like everyone collectively agreed to act like I didn't exist, which was fine by me. I'd spent the last few weeks preparing for something much more satisfying. The final move. Remember that cousin Jen who messaged me from the airport? The one who said the kids were hungry. Turns out she was a lot more fed up than she let on. After the trip fell apart, she started texting me more. Said the whole thing felt wrong and she didn't like being part of it. Said she felt guilty for going along with it. I didn't say much at first, but eventually I told her I was planning one more thing. A letter. Not a rant. Not an emotional monologue. Just the truth. I laid out every withdrawal from the trust, every unauthorized use, the timeline of the vacation planning, how I was excluded, how they used my authority as manager to push through payments, assuming I'd just go alone. I included screenshots, dates, even a photo of the resort flyer Katie sent to our aunt, dated a month before I was told anything about the trip. Then I had Jen forward it to the extended family, to the few who weren't on the trip, to the ones who weren't close enough to know the details but still sent holiday cards, to my grandmother's sister in Sarasota, the one who still writes checks for birthdays and used to call me her sweet boy. Within 24 hours, my mom got 3 calls asking what happened. 2 days later, Erin posted a story on Instagram about toxic energy and family betrayal. Katie hasn't posted anything since. And just like that, the cracks that had been quietly forming for years finally split open. They thought they could do whatever they wanted behind my back and walk away clean. They forgot who they were messing with. I didn't just pull the plug on their vacation. I turned on the floodlights, and I wasn't finished yet. 3 days after that email went out to the extended family, the silence ended. It started with a few awkward messages, mostly cousins I hadn't talked to in months. My uncle from Boston, who always acted like Switzerland during family drama, called me out of nowhere. Just said, "Damn, man, I didn't know," and then hung up. That night, I got a Venmo notification, $250 from him. Captioned, "Happy belated for the little guy. Proud of you." That told me everything I needed to know. The story had shifted. They weren't the victims anymore. I was no longer the dramatic one. People were asking questions. People were seeing the receipts. And for a family that thrived on curated appearances, that was poison. Katie went dark first, deleted her last 5 Instagram posts, locked down her Facebook. Erin did the opposite, started spiraling. He must have realized just how bad this was going to hit him financially. I found out from one of our cousins who forwarded a screenshot of Erin ranting in a private chat. "He's saying you used your position in the trust to blackmail him," she wrote. "He's also claiming you froze his mortgage funds just to make a point." Then she added, "He's losing it." I laughed. It was better than I could have hoped for. Erin had been in the middle of getting pre-approved for a home, finally moving out of that overpriced apartment with the monthly rent he always forgot to pay on time. He was planning to use his portion of the trust as part of his declared assets. A nice buffer. Only now the bank had flagged the trust as under legal review and all those assets frozen. By noon the next day, he was at my door. Didn't call first. Just banged like he was trying to cave it in. When I opened it, he was already talking. "You need to unfreeze the trust." No hello. No apology. Just that. I just looked at him. "I'm serious," he said. "I've got a deal going through a house. You don't understand what this screws up for me." He started pacing on my porch like that was going to convince me, tossing out lines like, "It wasn't just me, and you could have come if you really wanted." Then he said it was just a vacation, man. Your kid will forget it." That one hit like a slap, but I didn't show it. I just closed the door. The next call was from my dad. His tone had shifted. Less righteous, more pleading. "We're not trying to fight with you," he said. "We just need to resolve this. Let's talk. Maybe there's a compromise." I didn't reply. I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney. Then I logged into the bank again, sent a second statement reaffirming that no part of the trust was to be released until the dissolution was finalized. I CC'd the legal team again and attached the document my dad signed when I was appointed manager, the one that gave me discretion in cases of breach of agreement. Erin texted me later that night. One word, it didn't bother me. He wasn't the one I was focusing on anyway, because while everyone had been fixated on the trust money, the resort charges, the frozen bookings, the house Erin was losing, I'd found something else. Something small buried in a stack of Venmo receipts. A payment Katie sent from the trust account 6 months ago, $385, labeled Deposit MK Party Planner. I didn't know what it was at first, but then I remembered MK Events, a local party planning company, the same one Katie hired to organize her daughter's birthday party last winter. I found photos, balloons, catering, a bounce house. Whole thing had cost over $1,000, and she covered part of it using our family trust. The same one she claimed was only for emergencies and shared experiences. I called MK Events the next morning, pretending to confirm pricing for a repeat client. The woman I spoke to pulled up Katie's invoice without hesitation. Total $1,240. Payment trust account ending in $4,527. No reimbursement on file. I had it in writing. I had the timeline. And now I had proof that this wasn't just about a vacation. It was a pattern. Katie had been using the family money like it was a gift card for at least a year. I didn't confront her directly. Not yet. I was saving that for a bigger stage. The final move wasn't going to be subtle. It was going to be permanent. I waited. That's the part they never expect. The silence. Not just ignoring texts or skipping phone calls, but real intentional quiet. No responses. No explanations. Letting them stew in that space where control starts to slip and slowly the cracks widen. Once the trust was officially dissolved, the attorney sent over final documentation. I had full records of where every dollar went, what would be deducted from each person's share, and what they'd be left with. It was less than most of them expected, a lot less in some cases. Katie's deductions alone were over $2,000. Iran's were close to $3,500. My parents, who thought they were entitled to skim casually for years, took the biggest hit. I waited another day, then printed out everything. Katie was first. The envelope I sent didn't go to her house. It went to her office. I already knew where she worked. A children's nonprofit that ran after-school programs and summer literacy grants. Their entire brand was built on integrity. Katie had even posted a video recently about building community through trust. The irony was almost too on the nose. Inside the envelope, I included a copy of her Venmo transaction to MK Events, the party planning company. I attached the invoice I got from the owner and highlighted the $1,240 balance paid directly from the family trust account fund she never reimbursed. I didn't write a cover letter. I didn't need to. For days later, I heard from one of her coworkers, a friend of a friend. They said Katie was on leave. 2 days after that, her LinkedIn quietly updated position former program coordinator. She never called, never messaged, didn't even try to explain it. Aaron, meanwhile, was losing his grip. His mortgage pre-approval had been denied, and his lease renewal had gone up by $400 a month. The texts started again, only this time they weren't angry. They were frantic, apologetic. He even tried the "we were kids once" angle, reminding me of some Halloween memory from when we were 9. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent one more letter, this time to the HOE, following up on the patio situation at my parents' house, included the documentation from the trust withdrawal, confirmed no permit was on file, and submitted photos showing the extension beyond zoning limits. That's when the fines started showing up. They had 30 days to remove the addition or face weekly penalties. I got a screenshot from my cousin. A notice taped to the garage door in bright orange, flapping in the wind. My mom texted once just, "You're tearing us apart." I didn't reply. I wasn't tearing anyone apart. I was holding up a mirror, but I wasn't done yet. One final thing remained. The last act, something they wouldn't be able to sweep under the rug or spin in their favor. I sat down and wrote a letter, a real one, pen on paper. No anger, no insults, no sarcasm. I addressed it to the entire family. I told them exactly what happened, the withdrawals from the trust, the vacation I wasn't told about, the birthday they ignored, the messages they sent by accident and on purpose. I told them how they used the money we all inherited to treat themselves and then gaslit me when I responded. I told them what I did and why. Then I wrote something I hadn't said to any of them before. I don't need this family. My son doesn't either. We needed you once and you weren't there. Now we're fine on our own. I ended it with this. If you ever want to rebuild something, you'll have to start with truth and not expect forgiveness before it's earned. I signed it. Sent one copy to every household. I know they all got it. After that, I packed a weekend bag, took my son, and drove out to the coast. Just the two of us. We didn't talk about the family. We didn't need to. He built a crooked sand castle. I let the tide take it, and that was that.